Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inquisitive Finance. I'm your host, Raphael, and today we're going to continue on with the series where I've been talking about the different income brackets. So let's do a quick recap. On day one of this whole series, we talked about people making under 60K. On day two, it was from 60K to 120K. On day three, from 120K to 250K. And finally, today, we're now entering a massive milestone from 250K to 500K. Now, there is one more income bracket to talk about after this, and generally it's not something I'm too concerned about. It's actually sort of the financial independence, maybe the FIRE movement. But I thought it'd be worth to go a little bit into that just for my own knowledge and to also talk a little bit about it with some of the people in the audience that I know might be interested. So today I'm going to follow a very similar format to the one that I followed yesterday, where I haven't really done too much research. Today on the notes, you might see a couple of extra bullet points that I did. I just want to make sure I stay on track. But apart from all that, I hope you all enjoy the video, and let's get right into it. So, how responsibilities and ways you save money change at different income levels. So today we're talking about stage 4 wealth building slash upper income. We're talking about people making anywhere from 250K to 500K plus a year. Now you can imagine that percentage is very, very low, right? I think the first time we started at 45% for under 60K. This is household income, okay? Most people are probably, let's say, calculating average income as a household. And then for the next bracket, 60K to 120K, we were calculating, if I remember correctly, it was 27%. And then for the next bracket, 120 to 250, it was at 16%. So let's start the same way that we always do every single time I make one of these videos. So how many people in the US make between 250K to 500K plus a year? Now let's see what Google has to say. Again, I'll zoom in real quick to make sure everyone can see it. So this is approximately 5.2 million people in the US earn over $250,000 a year, with an estimated 0.79 of jobs or over 1 million positions paying more than 500 annually. The specific number of people making between 250K and 500K is not available in the provided search results, but it can be estimated by subtracting those who earn over 500K from the total of those earning 250K or more. Now I'm looking for a percentage, so let's dive deeper into AI mode here. I'll say, can you give me a rough percentage? Let's see what Gemini has to tell us. Again, I love tooling like this. So it's estimated that less than 5% of US households earn between 250,000 and 500,000 annually. So if you have a partner and you guys are making this amount annually combined, maybe if you work in tech, maybe if you're a doctor, maybe if you're in another one of these very professional degrees, you can consider yourself in this top 5% tier of people in the United States. It's definitely nothing to scoff at, and you should be very proud of yourself if you've made it to this income bracket. So of course, as I'm sure a lot of you are very interested in knowing, what exactly are these people doing with their money? What types of responsibilities do they have? What's their money mindset? And what's their savings mindset? So of course, as always, let's dive right into this and let's see exactly what happens. Now, I was reading a couple of these earlier, and it's almost kind of the same story as previous brackets, which I think makes a lot of sense. Remember, the more money you make, the more you want to figure out how you can preserve that money. You spend a lot of time in your younger years because you have time on your side, which is the most important thing, which actually I might want to illustrate here. Again, I've already done it before, but I think it's worth going over it again. You have a lot of time on your side when you're young. It's all about hyper accumulation. What's the most amount of money you can get with the time that you have? But the older you get, remember, you want to leave a legacy. You want to protect all the money that you've gained so far. You have a ton of assets. You just have a lot going on, a lot more complexity. So you want to make sure you have protection for all these types of assets you've built over the years. So let's do something that I always do. I like this Money Guy compound interest calculator. I just want to give you an idea of how much this money can compound if you wait different years. Okay, so let's say we're starting off with $0 and we have an annual rate of return of 8%, which I think it's a good one. It's right in the middle. I think on average is typically what you can expect to get. And let's say we're doing something monthly, right? Now I'm going to assume you're starting right after you graduate college, which I think for most people is probably 22. Although I don't know if that's really changed in the past years with education and all these things, but at least for me, I graduated at 24 because I took some time off. But I think the majority of students are graduating at 22. Now let's say that you decide to work until at least the current full retirement age, which is 67. So that's going to put you at 45 years of work. And that's something I'm interested in because frankly, I do enjoy my work. So let's say 45 years not interested, working. I don't know where interested, maybe invested is what I meant. I'm going to put an email here. I always use not my domain at domain.com. And let's say we're contributing just $100 a year. Okay, so $100 not a year, $100 every single month. So we're doing $1,200 a year. At the end of this, we can expect to get 527,454, and that is if you start directly at 22. But let's say you wait just 10 years later, right? Which 10 years, that's a long time. It's not just 10 years. It's a long time, 10 years. So now you're going to be invested for 35 years. I want to show you what that number drops down to, right? 229. I mean, that is a lot less. Okay, and let's say you wait till even longer. So another 10 years goes by, you haven't decided to invest anything. We're looking now at 95,103. So you can see for someone that starts at a young age, particularly with someone that's just out of college, even if you're someone in this low income bracket, I think you can probably afford just $1,200 a year of investments. So imagine at this age group, you've been invested for a long time. Odds are the people that are in this, let's say, the upper income limit, they've been invested for a long time. You want to protect those assets, right? All that money you've accumulated, that 500 or so thousand amount of dollars you can get by having invested at 22, how do you protect it? It's all the same story, right? But let's go over it again. So protecting wealth matters more than earning it, okay? You're shifting from offense to defense. You can make money and now you need to protect it. So one of those things that you might do is something like resilient diversification. You're going to be doing things like asset classes, like your stocks, your bonds, real estate, cash, different geographies like US plus some international exposure, some tax treatments like pre-tax, Roth, taxable brokerage, etc. These are things that we've already talked about up until this point, right? It's kind of neat because I feel like one thing that I've learned, if anything, is a lot of the complexity comes from, I think, the starting at like that 60K to 120, because that's the first time you have to start thinking about protecting your assets. So someone that goes from not making a lot of money and just having to focus on the foundations, just getting enough to pay for their rent, to pay for food, transportation, so on and so forth. That's just like money that you're paying for these very specific things. Once you start making more, now it's like you know more and you realize, man, I don't know enough. And there's actually a lot that I have to handle. I certainly felt the same way when I started working. Everyone around me was talking about investing, and I was like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, and I'm never gonna learn this. And I truly felt that way, so lost. But of course, the more and more I tried and learning about it, little by little, I got to kind of where I am today, where I can now start talking about it a little bit and hopefully teaching all my viewers a little bit something about investing. So now at this level, even though that things might seem confusing, right? We go back, we look at asset classes, stocks, bonds, real estate, cash. We've already been looking at these things in earlier income brackets, right? Geographies like U.S. plus international exposure. You might be wanting to get like a total stock market fund, which covers a lot of different geographies. And tax treatments like pre-tax, Roth, taxable brokerage, etc. Sorry if I'm kind of stumbling on words. I had terrible sleep last night, but I'm trying my best here, so bear with me. It is what it is. But let's actually look into one of these, right? So let's look at the like how much international in total stock market, right? Like VTIAX. International stocks make up roughly 30 to 50% of the global stock market by market capitalization. Let's see if we can look into this one, the VTIAX. It's a very popular one. Vanguard Total International Stock Index Fund Admiral shares. So this, I believe, this is not global. Do they have one that's global? Let's see, Vanguard Global ETF. So popular Vanguard Global ETFs, Vanguard Total World Stock ETF, VT. Let's look at VT. Right, and this is something I like too. I think it's important that we look at these together because we just get to learn a little bit. So we see that it's a index style management style. It's a world stock, asset class, international, global stock, expense ratio of 0.06, which is I think a great expense ratio for something like this. Market price. We can probably go in here and see a little bit of the portfolio composition. This should give us an idea of the different positions that this portfolio holds or what is inside this. Let's see, number of stocks, median market cap, benchmark. Maybe not. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Frankly, this is my first time that I'm on this website, but I guess here you can see all the different sectors that are involved. So we have financials, basic materials, consumer discretionary, real estate, consumer staples, and then of course you can go into different markets. Like you have, look at the percentages in United Arab Emirates or Canada, Switzerland, Chile. I'm very curious to see the United States. United States is 63% of this is in the United States. So that's a lot already, right? So it's only 37% from all the other places. So it's still very heavily weighted in the United States. This is why I think a lot of people maybe steer away from international because at the end of the day, even these global and international ETFs are so dependent on the US stock market that if something really happens to us, no pun intended, US us, maybe that was a terrible dad joke, it's going to affect markets elsewhere too, right? It's not just about if the US is doing poorly, then international markets will probably skyrocket. And I'm sure someone can point out an example where that was the case, but for all intents and purposes, I'm all in on the US, and I think you all know that already. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I mean by resilient diversification. So, just going back to my notes here. Now, to the next part, you start thinking about tax optimization, legacy, and lifestyle design. Again, things that we've already talked about, right? Estate planning, like doing things like wills and trusts, or generational wealth, like 529s or custodial accounts for kids. Custodial accounts, I'm not entirely sure what they are, but we talked about the 529 plans for your kids' college, right? Let's look up what custodial accounts are. Custodial accounts for kids. It says here, a custodial account is a savings or investment account set up by an adult to hold assets for a minor. Two main types, UGMA and UTMA, dictate what kinds of assets the account can hold and when the child gains control. As the custodian, the adult manages the account and must use the funds for the child's benefit. So it almost sounds like a trust fund to me. I'm sure there's some nuances there. Not something that I'm going to go into right now. I think maybe that's a topic for a different video, but I'm just showing you that now more there's more complexity, but by this point you're maybe already used to that complexity, right? The more money you make, you could keep it simple, right? There's a very famous book that I read. It's J.L. Collins' Simple Path to Wealth, right? Pretty much the whole premise of this book is you can just invest in the total stock market and be fine. For people that want to do nothing else, just invest in that. But I'm willing to bet that if you're watching these videos, you're already way ahead of the curve of probably most others that don't want to watch finance videos. So I would encourage you to learn about these complexities, and hopefully these videos are teaching you a little bit about it so you can make your own decisions. But yeah, by the time you get here, maybe it's more complexity, thinking about 529s, custodial accounts for kids, but you're already used to it. You've already been through all the different income brackets, and now you're at this point. So if anything, I feel like, man, you owe it to yourself to be smart about the way you use your money and invest it so you can make sure it's really working for you. Finally, the last responsibility here is managing complexity, which I think we've talked about so much already, right? You have multiple accounts. You have things like RSUs, restricted stock units, if you're working at one of these high companies, right? Companies that have a lot of status. Companies that are willing to give their employees some incentive for staying there for long periods of time. Maybe you're dealing with things like rental income or business equity, right? So you'll have multiple accounts like a 401k, a traditional IRA, an HSA, etc., a Roth IRA, things like SEP IRA, S-Core account, right? I've heard about SEP IRA, don't really understand, or honestly don't really know too much about it, but I know it's a thing. Then we have S-Corp accounts, right? Again, maybe a topic for a different video, but just letting you know that it's normal at this stage to be managing complexity and learning how to do it. And now we're going to go into the money priorities, okay? So let's quickly just recap here, right? I almost feel like we haven't really learned anything so new. People at this level are mainly concerned with managing complexity and preserving the assets that they've already built over decades of time, right? So the more money you build, the more you want to protect it. Obviously, you can make it grow, but you got to be more smart with your money. You're not someone in the low income brackets anymore, right? You've already passed the foundations. You've already passed that middle tier. Right now, you are someone making so much wealth that you need to almost have that complexity built in so that way you can manage it well. And again, maybe you are someone that just wants to read this book, which, by the way, I highly recommend it. Simple Path to Wealth, Your Roadmap to Financial Independence. The premise is, again, just total stock market, just invest in that and you'll be fine. I think the fund of choice is VT Sachs. Yeah, Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. Just invest in that for your whole life and you'll probably be fine, honestly. But again, if you're watching this video, you probably want to do a little bit more with your money than just that. Okay, so money priorities. The first one here, tax strategy. Use tax loss harvesting, asset location. Maybe I meant to say asset allocation. Charitable giving strategies and 529s of kids. Again, we've already looked into asset allocation, right? We've looked a little bit into 529s if you have kids, but there's some new terms here that I'm not too familiar with. So let's look up tax loss harvesting. What is tax loss harvesting? So it says tax loss harvesting is an investment strategy that involves selling investments at a loss to offset capital gains and reduce your tax liability. Investors can then reinvest the proceeds into similar but not identical securities to maintain market exposure. So is there a way that we can see an example? Okay, example of tax loss harvesting. Imagine you have two investments in a taxable brokerage account. Let me zoom in again here a little bit. In stock A, you have $5,000 of capital gain. In stock B, you have $3,000 of capital loss. Okay, without tax loss harvesting, if you sell stock A, you would owe capital gains tax on the full $5,000 profit. But with tax loss harvesting, you can execute the following steps. You sell stock A to lock in the $5,000 gain. You sell stock B to realize the $3,000 loss. Net gain and the loss. Your taxable capital gain for the year is reduced to $2,000, and then you reinvest the proceeds. Using the cash from the sale of stock B, you can buy a comparable but not substantially identical investment, maintaining your exposure to the market. So kind of an interesting thing, and you can see Vanguard even has like official documentation here talking about maximizing your tax savings with tax loss harvesting. Frankly, this is not something I was even aware of, and it's, I think, probably one of those things that, you only do when you get to this point. You're not thinking so much about how can I have, this capital gain and this gain here and then this realized loss, and how can I sell them at specific times to still reduce the tax that I pay and still be able to use the profit from stock B, like we saw in the example, to still buy something, right? We see benefits of tax loss harvesting. We save on taxes. We can continue growing our portfolio. We reduce cost and risk. We turn volatility into opportunity. This is so important here. And honestly, even more so than just money, I feel like it's a great mindset for life. Not so much in turning volatility into opportunity, but I would say turning, like, your reality is your mindset. Okay, I have a video that I actually created about that whole thing, your reality being your mindset. Let me show you real quick. It's one of the first videos I made in this whole run of my 30-day challenge. Your reality is your mindset. I think the first one I actually made was why mistakes are the key to progress. But your reality is your mindset. So going back to this, turn volatility into opportunity. If you can control your reality, you can turn negative outcomes into positive ones. Okay, so I think just like this is saying you can use this tax loss harvesting for opportunity, it's the same with your mindset. So maybe that's somewhat off topic, but a good piece of wisdom just to know for anyone listening. Okay, next one here. So we have something called charitable giving strategies, DAFs. Let's look at what this is. Charitable giving strategies, DAFs. What is a donor advised fund? This is from fidelitycharitable.org. A donor advised fund, or DAF, is like a charitable investment account for the sole purpose of supporting charitable organizations you care about. When you contribute cash, securities, or other assets to a donor advised fund or a public charity like Fidelity Charitable, you are generally eligible to take an immediate tax deduction. Then those funds can be invested for tax-free growth, and you can recommend grants to any eligible IRS qualified public charity. So this is another one of those methods that, again, I just don't think until you get to this level, and I'm not saying, obviously, you can probably open this, I don't know if it's an account that you open up, but you most likely can do this at any income bracket. But again, when you're in the lower income brackets, you're really just focused on your financial foundations. What are the exact things I need to just live, to eat, to get transportation, to work? Maybe as you start getting to some of the higher ones, imagine when you get to the middle one, right? Like, you've already passed the foundations, but now you're having kids, so you kind of need to funnel more money into kids before you start doing anything with charity. So you really need to you need to be making so much money that you have that much to give to charity, right? It's why, if you all follow someone called Dave Ramsey, I believe that his baby steps, the last one, is about giving. So let's look at Dave Ramsey's baby steps here. Yeah, build wealth and give. There's a reason why it's the last one on this list. Let me make sure it shows up here. Step 7, build wealth and give, because you need to be able to make so much money and make sure you have all these other things taken care of before you can actually be giving anything. So it's why we didn't see this in previous, let's say, income brackets, right? So kind of a cool thing there. Okay, second money priority here is diversification. Again, nothing really here that's so different, right? You have diversification into real estate, private equity, bonds, or alternatives. I don't think we have to go too deep into this. I think at this point we all know that diversification is key. You want to be investing into multiple different things. You have a lot of complexity now, but it's just the name of the game. Okay? You're going to likely have a professional team like a CPA, a CFP, or an estate attorney. I don't know what each one of these does. So we're going to go ahead and do that right here. What can a CPA, CFP, estate attorney do for me? Let's see what Gemini has to say here. So I'm just going to read this whole thing, right? A CPA is an expert in tax law, accounting, and financial reporting. They help both individuals and businesses with tax planning and filing, financial health, auditing and assurance, specialized advice. A CFP can help you create a financial plan, investment management, planning for life events, insurance and debt, so on and so forth. An estate attorney can do things like draft legal documents, avoid probate, minimize tax liabilities, protect your assets. So the more money you make, you're going to be spending money to ensure that you keep a lot of that money. However, I feel, at least, man, from what I know so far, there's sort of a bad rap on some of these people that you pay to protect your money, because oftentimes you're spending so much on their services that it's like, what if I just learn to do these things on my own? Like, is it really that difficult? We have so many resources today, especially with AI. Like, maybe you can just slowly but surely learn some of these things that these people do for you to keep all that money. I'm not sure the cost of CPAs, CFPs, I think that's what they are, CFP CPAs, but they're probably a lot of money. It's like an active fund manager. Remember that we talked about in active fund managing, you are paying not only for all these different, there's a lot of high turnover, right? All the selling and buying of all the different funds inside of it. You are paying capital gains on those, anywhere from like 1 to 2% of your annual earnings. But you're also paying the fund manager money that can be used to be invested elsewhere. So even though I think that this is something that a lot, people that have a lot of money do, I wonder if, you know, can you just learn to do it yourself? Like tax planning and filing, like how much help do you need with this? Can you just use AI or something to do it for you? I'm sure you can. Creating a financial plan. Do you really need to pay someone to create a financial plan? Planning for life events. Can you learn how to do these things on your own? Odds are you probably can, and you probably save a lot of money. And remember, every dollar that you save can turn to so much more when you retire and even further into your future for your kids, generational wealth, etc. So lots of different things to think about here. Okay, the next money priority, optimizing cash flow using things like high yield accounts, automated transfers, and planned reinvestments. Planned reinvestments I really like a lot because it's something that I think you need to have good financial health, a good relationship with money to understand, right? So planned reinvestments, I looked it up a little bit. So it's things like redirecting dividends to other accounts, like a real estate fund. So a lot of people might get a dividend and you might reinvest it, which by the way, I did make a video about this too. I think it was the first finance video I made. It was about drip, right? Dividends and drip investing explained. So you might take the dividend of a dividend fund and reinvest it back into that fund, or you can invest it to something else, like in this case, a real estate fund, right? Or you can use something like real estate income, rental income for maintenance on the home, but also on something else, like maybe a down payment on a separate home. So you can have a percentage, right? 30% of this rental income I'm going to put into maintenance, and 70% I'm going to save for the next down payment to buy another property. Remember, mortgages are very high leverage because you can buy a home for a low down payment, and you can just have someone rent it out for you, and hopefully in a couple of years you can sell it, or continue renting it out and hopefully build some passive income streams that way. Passive, if you have a manager, or if you're really into really into real estate. RSUs vesting can be redirected to index funds, dividend ETFs, fund money, etc. RSUs, those restricted stock units that some of these very, let's say, high status companies might give you as an incentive for staying for long periods of time. A lot of people will take these RSUs, which are typically divided into a percentage, like there's a vesting schedule. So let's look that up. Restricted stock units. So I'm seeing what's the best example here. So we see, okay, how our RSUs work. You get a grant, employer grants a number of RSUs to an employee as part of a compensation package. Vesting, the RSUs are subject to a vesting schedule, which can be time-based, so some companies might give you, here's an example. If you receive 100 RSUs at the 1-year cliff and monthly vesting for 3 years, you would receive 25 shares after the first year, and then 25 shares per year, or approximately 2 shares per month for the following 3 years. So once you're fully vested, you can just go ahead and sell that stock immediately. Okay, so when the RSUs vest, they are taxed as ordinary income. The company will often withhold a portion of the shares to cover federal, state, and local taxes. The employee receives the remaining shares or cash value. You can decide to keep these shares you already have if you believe that the company is going to continue doing great things, but of course, you are always risking yourself by concentrating all those shares into a single company. I think what most people probably do, and in this case, apparently is something that people with a high income do, is they redirect it to other funds. So you might take your RSU earnings and put it into index funds, dividend ETFs, fund money, etc. And then finally, of course, you have business profits. I'm willing to bet that a lot of people in this income bracket, 250 to 500, maybe they still have their 9 to 5 job. Who knows? Maybe they have the side income, they have a side hustle, but a lot of them probably have business profits they can use to reinvest back into the business, or reinvest really into anything else. Again, the story is very similar here, just being smart with your money, protecting it, letting it grow, knowing how to manage it. And finally, I love this last one right here. Balancing growth versus freedom. More money gives you time flexibility, not just stuff. The more money you make, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to keep buying more things. And I think if we go back to the low income bracket, people at 60K or under, they often suffer with the keeping up with the Joneses mentality, right? And probably people at this income bracket might as well, because they have so much money. The people they probably hang around are often probably making that amount of money as well. They drive nice cars, they have nice clothes, they have nice houses. So it's like maybe they want to accumulate all these things to show off, but you're also getting a lot of time, right? You have time because maybe you can delegate now. Maybe you can fly, let's say, well, I don't know about a jet. Maybe that's too much money at this, but you know, a lot of these really rich people will buy like a jet to be able to get somewhere very fast and save on time. But you might be able to delegate other things that you previously didn't do. Some people might decide to purchase like a chef to cook for them, or they might purchase, you know, a cleaning service to clean for them. So you can start delegating some of these, let's say, things that used to take you time. So you're giving yourself time back. So money really is time, or time is money rather. I don't know if I use that the right way, but I think you all understand the point. The more money you have, you can use it to get some time back and use your time really for what you want to do. Use your time wisely, like use your time for what you want to actually do in your life, which is why I think so many people are so interested in the financial independence retire early movement, right? But maybe we'll talk about that in the next video in the last part of the series. So stick around for that if you are interested. Of course, subscribe, comment, let me know all your thoughts. And finally, we're ending off with the saving style. So in this income bracket, you start asking yourself, how can my money work for me while I work less? Your wealth shifts from accumulation to optimization and preservation. So if I remember correctly, that first income bracket, 0 to 60K, it was reactive saving. Okay, 60 to 120K was proactive savings. 120 to 250K was being deliberate with where you are saving percentage wise into different buckets, right? A little bit into a down payment on a home, maybe a little bit into a vacation, maybe a little bit into specific investments you want to do. And now you're thinking, how can my money work for me while I work less? Okay, now you've made so much money, you can start actually buying time back. Like I said, delegating, offloading things because of the amount of money you have. You can perhaps work even less because you've accumulated this amount of wealth. But I'm willing to bet that someone that's gotten to this income bracket probably is going to continue working more because that's how they got there in the first place. The only thing they've known is hard work, consistency, loyalty to the craft that they're building. So odds are they're probably going to continue doing this. So anyway, this is now the fourth income bracket. I'm probably going to end off with the next one being the last one, and that's going to be more of the FIRE. Again, financial independence, retire early, what you do when you're already retired and you have that real FU money, financial independence, and see what types of money, mindsets, and responsibilities and saving styles individuals in this part of their life have. So, as always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, ring that notification icon, comment, do all that fun YouTube stuff. It's been absolutely so fun to be on this 30-day journey. I've been making a video almost every single day, trying out a lot of new things that frankly I just never thought I could do. So if you're out there, if you want to be a content creator and you feel like you can't do it, I can assure you can do it. Just honestly, just stick with it, okay? I believe this is going to be my 23rd video that I've uploaded as part of my 30-day challenge. I'm already starting to write some notes for a video I'd like to make on my 30th video. The 30th video will not be finance related. It will be related to sort of my YouTube progress, you know, some of the insights I've gained, things that I've learned, and where I see myself going after the 30 days. What can I assure you is nowhere. I'm staying right here on YouTube, and I'm going to keep going. So with all that being said, everyone, thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, the show is Inquisitive Finance. My name is Rafael Negron, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.